Kellen Moore has taken the right approach as the Tyler Shough era begins in New Orleans. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, Cesar Ruiz is the newest New Orleans Saints in trade talks, what that could potentially look like, and what team could be interested. We'll dive into that. We'll also take a look at what Tyler Shough needs to show in Los Angeles this weekend against the Rams and why the Rams are actually a pretty positive matchup for him in a pretty unconventional way. But we'll kick everything off with Kellen Moore's comments on how he plans to undergo the Tyler Shough era and why he's making the right choice. We got all that coming up for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, and every one of our Crossover Thursday episodes is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. New Orleans Saints head coach Kellen Moore said that there will be no flip-flopping. There will be no back and forth when it comes to the quarterback position, and that Tyler Shough is their guy, and that the plan is for him to start not just week 9 against the Los Angeles Rams, but to finish out the season, the next 9 games remaining, as the New Orleans Saints starting quarterback. And I love this approach by Kellen Moore, but I do want to clarify a couple of things that I think get a little bit conflated when it comes to definition. So the exact quote from Kellen Moore was, "Tyler's starting and we're not looking back," right? And so that's a big thing to put out there. And then he was asked to clarify, is the intent for Tyler Shough to be the starter for the rest of the year? And he said, yes, there's not going to be any back and forth. Now, I want to be very clear that that doesn't mean that regardless of Tyler Shough's performance, that he will be the starter for the rest of the year. But what it means is that there will be no weekly this and that. Will they, won't they? This guy or that guy. There'll be no weekly quarterback competition or quarterback controversy as they go through. I'll bring you back to last year. Derek Carr gets hurt, former New Orleans Saints quarterback. They hold a competition in practices throughout the week for Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, and they effectively do that for the next couple of weeks. They move quarterbacks from being on Wednesday in terms of their media availability to Friday, and then they make the announcements each time, and then you end up going out there. We also saw it with the New York Jets here this past weekend. They took it all the way down to Friday. It's a thing that a lot of teams will sometimes do, and in the midst of that, will either choose in practice to either split or not actually split practice reps. They just don't want to tell anybody. Kellen Moore is wasting no time with all this. And he's not going to do anything that's going to try to push this down and create a mystery and everything. Tyler Shough is the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. But rest assured that Kellen Moore, who has already shown in a couple different ways a propensity to make change when change is needed, that for Tyler Shough, this is still very much about him going out there and doing the right things. Now, it doesn't mean that one bad week would be the end of his opportunity, but you're not going to be able to go out there and just play, fast and loose and not be fully bought in or whatever it might be. And that's not something Tyler Shough is interested in doing either. He acknowledged himself that this is a performance-based league and that he still has to go out there and perform. So I want to be real clear about that, because I've seen a lot of conflation of the idea, well, Kellen Moore said that there would be no quarterback controversy and that there would be no flip-flopping when it came to Spencer Rattler at the beginning of the season. But yet, 8 weeks into the season, he benched Spencer Rattler. That's not a quarterback controversy. That's a quarterback change that was based on the performance evaluation, right? And we can feel however we want to about Spencer Rattler. All that really mattered, and his performance up to that point at which he was benched in the third quarter up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, none of that matters. All that matters is what Kellen Moore and the coaching staff evaluated and what their evaluation was of the performance up to that time. And then that is what led to the quarterback change. So I want to be very clear that while he's saying that there won't be any quarterback controversy, while he's saying that there won't be any flip-flopping, while he's saying that there won't be any back and forth when it comes to the quarterback conversation and that Tyler Shough is their guy, it doesn't mean that Tyler Shough is entirely immune or impervious to his own performance. He himself acknowledged that his performance is still very important. He mentioned that it's twofold, right? That yes, it's great to have that confidence in the coaching staff, but that he also understands that this is a performance-based league and that he'll need to go out there and perform. But what you won't see is a weekly trend of, is it Spencer Rattler? Is it Tyler Shough? As long as Tyler Shough holds the starting position, he will be the starter, no questions asked. And I know that sounds so elementary and maybe kind of reductionist in a way, but it's not. It's important to highlight, and that is what Kellen Moore is doing. And I think it's the right choice. I think it's the right thing to do. I think he's going about it the correct way or the best possible way, because you want Tyler Shough, a rookie who's going in and starting his first game here in the week 9 of his rookie season up against a pretty challenging opponent in the Los Angeles Rams, who we'll break down here in just a moment. But it's not necessary to put him in a position to where he feels like I have to go out there and I have to solidify this position every single week. He's got to go out there and he's got to perform, but it's not going to be a week-to-week evaluation. They're going to give him an opportunity to go out there, fail, struggle, and succeed, and then get better the next week, and then get better the next week, and get better the next week. That's going to be the ideal situation for Tyler Shough. Go out there, see what works, see what doesn't work, take the things that work, make them better, take the things that didn't work and make them work. That's going to be the process here. Go out, perform, respond. That's what you're going to see all throughout this process. And I think that's smart. You don't want Tyler Shough looking over his shoulder back at Spencer Rattler and thinking, well, they could just put Spencer back in at any point. You don't want to do that. Not when you have the opportunity to go out there and perform well. Now, you still have to perform and you will have to hold on to that job for the stretch of the 9 weeks, but you're not going to get in there for a weekly conversation of who the quarterback is going to be. Tyler Shough is the guy until he isn't, just like Spencer Rattler was the guy until he wasn't. And I think that that's what you're going to see here. And I think that's very smart from Kellen Moore. It's a good way to treat a young rookie that's going in and getting his first opportunities. As far as we've seen it, Tyler Shough is Kellen Moore's guy. That's the guy that was drafted when Kellen Moore took over. That's the guy that was given every opportunity over the course of the offseason and preseason to win the quarterback competition. He got a fair shot at it all throughout. Now he's got a fair shot being the starter and potentially holding on to the starting role into 2026. So these next 9 games, very, very important at max for Tyler Shough, but don't expect a weekly conversation. If there needs to be a change, I'm sure they would make a change, but Tyler Shough is going to get the opportunity to prove that there won't be a need for a change, or at least that's what he's hoping for. And that all begins this weekend, week 9, up against the Los Angeles Rams, which is a tough matchup, but in many ways, a perfect matchup as well. Let's get to that next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks, the easiest and most fun way to play daily fantasy sports. You and I make big decisions every day, but your decisions, especially if they're right, can get you paid over at PrizePicks. Here's all you got to do. It takes less than 60 seconds to build your lineup. All you got to do is choose more or less on 2 to 6 players over at PrizePicks on their stat projections. If you get those right, you can be walking away with a big time payday. And now their stacks feature, I think, is an absolute game changer. You can take a player like Zion Williamson and you can take the more or less on points scored, rebounds, and assists. You can do them all for the same player, or of course, you can spread it out over the course of several players as well. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends over at Monarch. Let's be real, a lot of people can't even name their financial accounts, whether you're talking about 401ks, savings, investments, whatever it might be. And that can sometimes mean money left on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together all in one place in an easy to use interface on your laptop or on your phone. I use it a lot to track expenses. I pay my own way to travel and cover games, go to the combine, all the other stuff. So having something like Monarch have my back on the financial side is absolutely awesome. That's how Monarch has helped me. Monarch's visual dashboards are awesome and super easy to navigate. It allowed me to take 6 different apps and cull them down into my banking app and Monarch, and now I'm ready to go. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, family. Rookie quarterback Tyler Shough has a big opportunity, but also a big challenge up ahead of him when it comes to getting his first start up against the Los Angeles Rams. And while that matchup will be challenging, going up against guys like Byron Young as well as Jared Verse, these edge rushers, this really good and disruptive defensive line of the Los Angeles Rams, it actually kind of provides Tyler Shough a little bit of a let it rip kind of opportunity here. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of what Tyler Shough talked about was how, look, just want to go out there, have fun, let it rip, go out there, spin it, be aggressive. He said that he feels like he plays at his best and is most like himself on a football field when he is playing aggressive. So he does want to go out there and do that, all those things, but also knows and is being coached up by maybe some of his teammates as well. Brandon Cooks, he mentioned, kind of told him like, hey, when they call those shot plays, you don't always have to take the shot, right? You don't have to take the big play, take the right play kind of language that he's getting and coaching up from his teammates and his coaches and all that. This is a big opportunity for him. But there's a part of me that feels like actually going up against the Rams can be a little bit freeing. The expectations are going to be crazy low in terms of this team going to SoFi in Los Angeles and trying to take on the Rams. They're 14.5-point underdogs in this game. That's not going to be something that players are going to be paying attention to. But I do think that to an extent, there is a little bit of a freedom here in this moment. There were a lot of people who said, you know what, don't start Tyler Shough. You don't want to have him go up against the Los Angeles Rams and that really good defense and that good defensive line and have put him in that situation. And honestly, why not? Why not give him his toughest task right away, let him get things figured out, and then learn from that and then move forward? I get the idea of wanting him to get out there and boost his confidence with an easy game or an opponent that's deemed as easy, but this is also a 1-7 New Orleans Saints football team. Is any opponent easy? Is any game situation easy for them? No, I don't think so. And wouldn't it be a little bit more of a shot to his confidence if he went out there against the, sorry to slander a couple of teams here, but go up against the Miami Dolphins and lose? Up against the Tennessee Titans and lose? The New York Jets and lose? Wouldn't that be more of a jolt to his confidence as a opening opportunity than going up against a really good football team, competing your heart out, giving it everything that you've got, and then coming up short? Yeah, I think I would take personally, give me the Rams game. Let me go out there where I can lose a game and it might not be my fault. Let me go out there where I can lose a game and it'll be okay because you're going up against a clearly superior opponent. But then let me go out there and beat a superior opponent potentially. Let me go out there and compete against a superior opponent and show you that I can rise to the occasion. I would want that as a competitor more than I would want to be given the, directional state university game, if we were talking about college football. And so I will take going up against the really talented, really tough opponent probably 10 times out of 10, honestly. Like, I'm thinking about it from my perspective. Now, let's be real. I'm an idiot. So of course I would say that, right? Way easier said than done behind the comfort of my microphone and my camera, right? Easier for me to say that. But I do think that there is something to that in terms of this opportunity for Tyler Shough. I don't think that if he goes out there and struggles, or if he goes out there and the team loses, even if he looks okay or looks better than okay, looks good, everything like that, that's going to pay such larger dividends for him going up against a real challenge. But if he goes out there and he struggles, or he goes out there and he looks like a rookie quarterback getting his first start, which would be perfectly understandable in this situation, I don't think anybody's going to hold it against him. Nobody's going to be like, oh gosh, he couldn't go out there and beat the Rams. But imagine if his first start was against the Jets at home and he lost that game. because it was his first NFL start. And by the way, the rest of the team is struggling too. I shouldn't even say two, because we don't know if Tyler Shough is struggling. We haven't seen him yet. But by the way, the rest of the team is struggling. Special teams has been, really disappointing so far this season, and certainly very frustrating. The defense has been up and down, especially in the run category. The pass catchers have had trouble catching passes. The run game is non-existent. The offensive line right now is one of the worst in the NFL in terms of both blocking composites in the passing game and in the rushing game. There's no guarantees for this team. So why not let him go out there up against a top tier opponent and see if he can pioneer all of that stuff that we just named together in a way that allows him to be able to compete and allows your team to be able to compete, and then give him a major shot in the arm when it comes to confidence, as opposed to what the loss would bring, which is, hey, lost to a really good team, pack it up, going back, be on the road against Carolina, a beatable team, get them next time. That's the worst case scenario in that situation. And so I think that's a good situation for a guy like Tyler Shough. So what is it that we want to see from him? I think one of the big things that I would certainly like to see is more designed runs for the quarterback. You got a guy with 4.63 speed here. That's a good mover and a good runner with the football, can take care of himself, knows how to slide, and can put points on the board with his legs in the red zone situations with boot actions, rollouts, zone reads, all those other things. So I would like to see a little bit of that. I would like to see the RPOs end in runs for the running back, so actually hand the ball off. I think I need to do a little bit more digging into RPOs so far for the Saints, how many of those turned into passes versus how many of those turned into runs. But Kellen Moore specifically pointed that out, to where a big part of the lack of run game in the game against Tampa was that a lot of their run plays turned into passing plays. Does Tyler Shough make different decisions in that case? And then, of course, you want to see the football driven downfield a little bit more. And I would say a little bit more than what we saw from Tyler Shough against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tyler Shough threw 30 passes, 17 of them were within 10 yards, and only 5 of them were beyond 20 yards down the field. He was 0 of 5 on those passes. And by the way, he only completed a couple of passes in between the hashes. So I wouldn't mind seeing him attack the middle of the field as well. He was only 1 of 1 between the hashes in the middle of the field. Now, between the numbers and close to the line of scrimmage, he was working that area a little bit, but wouldn't mind seeing more of an attack between the numbers in the intermediate area and in the deep area, where everything at that point beyond 10 yards was perimeter, right? So would love to see him attack the middle of the field, and would love to see him attack the deep area of the field as well, and just bring another level to this passing game. They've done a lot of this stuff about 3-pointers and layups, but there's got to be something in between. You need a mid-range jumper. Can you go out there and get that as well? I think those are some things that we'd love to see from Tyler Shough. A little bit more usage of, this would be from Kellen Moore, but a little bit of a usage of Tyler Shough's athletic ability as a runner. Being able to properly manage the RPO game in a way that's balanced, and then attacking more areas of the field to give the offense another level. Now, are the receivers going to catch the football? Are the blockers going to block? Is the run game going to work? Those are all question marks. But this is what I want to see from Tyler Shough, period. The rest of the operation around him needs to show up as well. There's no doubt about that. But that is already something we can take for granted, that is necessary for everybody on that offense. Coming up next, Cesar Ruiz, all of a sudden entering some of the trade rumors, and there's one team in particular that makes a lot of sense that could come calling. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts vehicles for those who do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anybody else. As of August 2025, that is Mazda. From footwork to breath work, we know that the athletes that you know and love sweat all of the details, and Mazda brings that same level of attention to every single one of their models. And you can see it in all of the craftsmanship that is in every single detail, the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. Don't forget about that all-wheel drive that comes standard with every crossover SUV, making it so that you can drive with confidence through every and any season. Make everyday drives feel like anything but with the smooth handling and intuitive controls. Just like the players that you know and love, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. New Orleans Saints offensive lineman Cesar Ruiz is all of a sudden now the subject of trade rumors. Now, trade rumors are nothing but that, rumors, but it is an intriguing proposition because the Saints are in a unique situation that we aren't used to them being in that leads to this very conversation. And there is a team that I could see maybe come calling. Let's get to that as we continue on with today's show. Real quick, before we get started with that, I know what you're thinking. Ross, it's Thursday. Where's the crossover? I thought you and Travis Rogers were going to do an episode from Locked on Rams. We are. It'll just come out later on today. Travis and I had some scheduling things. I wanted to make sure that you still had an episode bright and early this morning. So that's this episode. And then probably as you're watching this, Travis and I are recording a crossover. And so you'll get a second Thursday episode this afternoon that will come out just while we're at practice and stuff like that. So crossover Thursday is still on the way, just so that you know. If you're watching us over on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, where you can catch us every single Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., that's going to be exclusive to the podcast and YouTube. So make sure you come over to those platforms in order to find that crossover Thursday episode. That'll probably be out around noon, 1 p.m.-ish. Central time, maybe a little bit later, depending upon how things go with this episode. If I want to give it time to breathe and all the other stuff, news, yada, 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 you know how it goes. All right. So the Saints have had a lot of trade rumors centering around them, right? They're a 1-7 football team, and they're a team that have some tradable assets, some good young assets, some young veteran assets as well that could potentially be on the move. And so one of the newest names that has come up, though, is really intriguing. And that is starting right guard, 2021 first round selection, who's been around since then, is already on his second contract, got a 4-year extension just a couple years ago, Cesar Ruiz. And that is a really interesting thing because we're not used to talk about the New Orleans Saints having enough on the offensive line to be able to trade pieces. You just heard me say a second ago that the Saints are one of the worst ranked teams on the offensive line when it comes to composite blocking scores and pass blocking scores and composite run blocking scores, which composite just means that it factors in a lot of different things. So it could be some like run block win rate, but then also PFF run grade and stuff like that. Like it's a composite grade that incorporates all these different viewpoints, analytics, all these other things. And so it takes into account a whole bunch of stuff. And so if they're in that situation, how is it that they could potentially trade away a starting offensive lineman? Well, I'll say that not every one of those analytics sites knows actually what the responsibility of an offensive lineman is. Some of you have reached out to me before and have asked, hey, what do you think about this play or this player and what they're doing during this play? And I'll tell you, I don't know. Let me go ask them, and I'll go and ask the player, or I'll go and ask the player's coach, because knowing the responsibilities of the offensive line is a lot like trying to say that you know the responsibilities of the secondary when you don't always know, right? Like you'd have to be in the huddle and the team meetings in order to really know that. So I'll usually bring those questions to that. So that might be something that impacts those composite grades and things to that effect. But I think that there are times that you can just simply see where the New Orleans Saints offensive line is struggling. And so I do think that there's some validity there. So how can you then move a player? Well, the Saints are actually in a really unique position. For the first time in a long time, if the Saints were to trade away a starting offensive lineman, they have some interesting talent behind them. Dylan Radins is a veteran player, former second-round pick that the Saints have on a 1-year deal right now, who could potentially step into a larger starting role if a Cesar Ruiz was traded away. That's a guy that started 15 games at right guard for the Tennessee Titans just last year in 2024. And so now get him in. If you were to trade Cesar Ruiz away, then you could potentially slide Dylan Radins in as your starting right guard. He'll be right back at home. Undrafted free agent rookie Torricelli Simpkins III is a guy that everybody's been very excited about, a guy that the New Orleans Saints coaching staff, and I quote, bleeping love. And he played better at center during the preseason than he played at guard during the regular season, but that's not super surprising. He is an undrafted rookie after all, and so development and growth is going to be a big part of his story, but development and growth are more likely to happen on the field than off the field. And so maybe the Saints could feel that, okay, trade away Cesar Ruiz, keep Dylan Radins as a veteran, experienced backup that can move around to a bunch of different places, can play tackle-ish and then play guard pretty well, and then plug in Torricelli Simpkins, the third in those situations. So they have, for the first time in a long time actually, enough on the interior of the offensive lineman, backup-wise, to be able to make a move like this. The reason why this name, Cesar Ruiz, has popped up in trade rumors is because ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that other teams, so not the New Orleans Saints, very important distinction there, but teams around the NFL that he has spoken to, believe that Cesar Ruiz could be on the move, quote, at the right price, which is always really funny because anyone can be on the move at the right price. One of your best players that you deem untouchable would be on the move if the offer was from the team that's in line for the number 3 overall selection, offering you a first-round pick. That changes conversations very quickly. So at the right price is always a funny little thing that gets thrown in there, but it is intriguing. And I think a team like the Seattle Seahawks are really, really intriguing in this situation. They need help on the offensive line. They're looking for help on the offensive line via multiple reports. And offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, as well as offensive line coach John Benton, know and have a lot of high regard for Cesar Ruiz. So definitely a team to watch out for in this conversation. We'll see where things go as a trade deadline nears. All right. Later on, Crossover Thursday, we'll be back with you tomorrow to help you get ready for the Los Angeles Rams. We got that all coming up for you here. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know what the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how you momming them. I trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.